get this underway. Hey. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. Feel kind of like Max Headroom. I think I just need to get like some sort of graphic background going behind me so I can do the Max Headroom thing. Hope you're doing well where you are. We're in the pre-show. We're just waiting for CouchBot to officially fire. Got a busy day today. Busy day. A lot of people migrating through the career section. Had a really interesting question from Abraham that we'll talk about that here because a lot of people talk about developer handoff. It's like, okay, so now you're finally working with the developer and you're in Figma and they're in maybe React, or maybe it's a mobile app and they're building it in Swift, or however they're constructing the actual the service or site that they're building. You know, it's not something that you either A, were hired to do, or B, really a great usage of your time. So they've got a you're working with a good developer and you're wondering how to hand off assets, how to hand off design work to them. And the first thing that I think is absolutely crucial is a good working prototype that meets the requirements that you're expecting to see in the application itself. A lot of this has to do with micro actions, the little moments inside the app. Where are the hovers? What is the micro copy like? What's the animation look like? These are things that the developer you're working with likely can do anything in the world that you want them to do. They're awaiting input. They're awaiting some sort of guidance to inform their decision making. So a solid prototype is the first. This is an absolute must. Anytime you're working with a developer. But I also think this is where it's crucial to be able to work in the platform with the developer. If they're in Swift, you know what? You're going to need to know a little Swift. If it's just like a React build, you should know a little React. You should be able to pull down a GitHub repo and crawl into it with them to aid where necessary. Other than that, I do believe that there are a number of things that you can do that will really benefit them. One of the biggest ones is making sure that they have easy access to all the values that are necessary for typography and color. A general idea of common spacing is also really helpful to make available to them. A lot of times it's like, oh, well, it's in the document. Well, extract that stuff out of the document, okay? Extract that stuff out of the document, put it in a file. A lot of times what I've found is that if you have a project management system, there's probably there's some sort of master or trying to eradicate that terminology. There's some sort of lead file or lead document that's heading that project, making sure that all the color values and typographic values that you're using are available in that place, so nobody has a question of what we should or shouldn't be using. I think that's just an obvious. And then being able to pair. So making sure that you have a working prototype, extracting key values out of the work so that they're not having to dig around in the actual document for that, and then being able to pair with them as necessary. I think those are the things that, and people will say, well, Chris, that's not really handoff. And I got to be honest with you, I've always worked side by side with my developers. So the idea of a true handoff is a little foreign to me. I realize it's not going to be that same way for everybody, but I think I think doing whatever you can to make it easy for the developer and really for anybody on your team is going to pay huge dividends when you have to get in there and do and you've got these fussy little asks that are going to help elevate the product. And if you're in there working with them, it makes it a lot easier to to reach for that. Okay, and if you're not in there working with them, it's like you're on one side of the fence and they're on the other, and you're kind of begging. Okay, so that's the real reason I get in there and I work with my developers. I want them to know that I care about the project and the success enough, so much so that I will get in there and work with them on it. And then typically they basically say, all right, Chris, yeah, that's great. We can do it better than you. So why don't you just slide on over and just answer our questions. You got to be honest with yourself, all right? I've worked with some really smart developers. Been very blessed. Hey, CouchBot's fired, and I've monologued too much. So let's get this underway. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. It is time for the feedback loop. So good to have you back with us one more time. We've got Katie, Eve, and Charlie in here today. Abraham helped us out with the pre-show. And if you're wondering, well, what do you mean, Chris? There's always a segment of feedback loop that is prior to the edited version that's happening right now. That's the live stream, the rough cut that is always recorded. I'm always waiting for CouchBot to inform the New Pragmatic community on Discord that we are live streaming, and sometimes we cover topics in that early pre-show, pre-recorded, or pre-stream, if you will. And today we were talking about developer handoff. So if you're interested in that, be sure to go check out the rough cut. It's over on the YouTube channel as part of today's live stream. But this is the feedback loop, and we're going to jump right on in right now. Today I will go ahead and share my screen. And the first thing I want to do, we've got Eve right here, and I actually want to jump. We're going to talk about resumes real quick, because resumes are near and dear to my heart, mainly because everybody's pretty much got to have one. And I've talked about this before, that there are ways to really stumble over yourself when you are applying for jobs. And this wasn't a big issue until recently, but over-designed resumes will now basically get you punted out of any job search, because employers, particularly large employers, are using applicant tracking systems. And applicant tracking systems dislike a lot of things. One of the things they really dislike is artwork, line work, color, anything fun. Pretty much an applicant tracking system's not going to like. And as you can see with this, what we have with Eve, there's actually, I haven't even talked about the content yet, but if we were going to apply for a larger position with a company that we knew would probably get 100 resumes, they're probably going to be using an applicant tracking system to sort these resumes, and this resume would throw an error, just as it is right now. It's a PDF, which means it's probably difficult for text to get lifted out. I can get after that first line, but and oddly enough, I can get after a lot of this, so that's good. Some reason I can get it after it now. Well, that's good. So at least Google's having an okay time getting into this information. But bottom line is, I can't count on that, because an applicant tracking system, it may have trouble with it. So what I typically do is I advise students to have two different resumes. Okay, one that you submit with the job application, and anytime it says submit resume here, I tend to have a resume that looks a lot like this. Okay, now I would advise pulling the color off of this. Just again, just make it black and white, so you do not throw off the applicant tracking system. But what I like about this is that it gives you just a little bit of style. It gives you a two-column design, which means it's a little more legible in terms of you're not reading the text all the way across, all the way across. But at the same time, it meets all the criteria of the applicant tracking system in that it doesn't have any line work, it doesn't have any weird dots, it doesn't have any images. All those are no-nos for your main resume. Okay, so and this is just a resume template straight out of Google Docs. I would make it no more complicated than this for resumes that you're going to be submitting. Now, on the flip side, I think that having a resume that's been dressed up a bit, if you want to have color and line and things like that, that's fine. That's fine. If you've got a little logo, you can totally do that. I wouldn't go overboard though. Okay. I really believe resumes are best when they are restrained. Let your portfolio do the talking. Your portfolio doesn't have to go through some AI tracking system. Okay. So here, obviously, let's talk about the content for a second. All right. Because right now it says 4 years design experience at a high-end full-service residential interior design firm, 8 years experience using AutoCAD and various other 2D drawing programs or design programs. Ensures positive client relations with design clientele by paying close attention to client needs and developing well-designed homes to effectively reflect their personality. Successfully co-led the design project of a new construction multi-million-dollar home. So obviously you're coming, Eve, you're coming from a background in interior design, and that's great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We want to make mention of the fact that you are a experienced designer with an interior design background moving into the field of UX. And this is where I might say I'm a research focused or a user focused designer with years of experience in interior design, and now making the transition into user experience. Something that adds those two worlds together is going to be the way that I would move forward. And additionally, I would make sure that ends up here on your LinkedIn. Now, I'll bring mine up really fast. No, I do not want to take a recruiter quiz. Now, for me, I've got an about screen, and it talks quite a bit about. For me, it talks about New Pragmatic, and I'm talking basically, I'm advertising, specifically talking to students who are wondering, hey, who is this that I'm considering signing up with? Okay, you're going to be talking to a different audience than I'm talking to. So your about screen should look a little different. There is one thing I would advise that you do. Make sure that you add a specialties area. Talk about the things that you are really good at in your about introduction. That's something I wouldn't really worry about here. And then the next thing that I want to do, I also have this thing where I talk about things that I've taken part in, and actually I'm missing one here. Well, no, that's 2019's in there. Things that I've taken part in that were more, they're not really elsewhere in the resume. And then other accolades, like if I basically do not have all of my jobs here. So like anything prior to 2001, it's probably not in my LinkedIn, so I'm listing it now. You'll get to a point in your career where you won't list every possible job. Like, and I still don't have like when I worked as a pizza artist, a pizza artiste. But the I do think it's important to have these little things somewhere represented. Okay, and we'll talk more about this when we get into like the about page in your portfolio. The other thing that I like is this featured section. All right, this feature section, I use it for videos. All right, but if you were to go and take a look at let's take a look at Tegel's feature section real quick. And I think Tegel has done a really good job with her um, LinkedIn, and okay, so she's kind of flipped it around. So Tegel has now added these, so under experience, she had it as a featured section before, but now these are added in as individual items the below the each individual project. I'm not sure why that one's not showing up, but what's important here is that you're getting a sense of the work, the things that would appear inside a portfolio are they now have a home inside of LinkedIn. So again, I would say adding an about section, adding some sort of I think adding a featured section like for Fresh Market, and then each project that you work on, that makes a lot of sense for you, especially like right now we don't have a sense of the other projects that you worked on. Even like some of the interior design work, I think could and should have a featured presentation in here. So I'll hop back over to me for a second. View profile. And adding one of these is simply coming over here and clicking plus, and you can articles published on LinkedIn. Links is the one that you're going to want, and also if you have like screen grabs and whatnot, you can upload it as media. But once you come in here, if I typed in link and then I said, I'll say new Pragmatic, I'll just say designhug.com and just see what comes up. Oh, sorry, unable to receive. All right, let's try new Pragmatic. Mentorship. And here it's going to like, it's grabbed an image. You can change this out. Hey, there's Melanie right there. Melanie pointed that out to me the other day. She's like, hey, I'm actually on the mentorship page. And I didn't realize that this was taken in 2017? No, 2018. 2017? 2018. No, 2018. That's 2018. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. Lots of good people in that photo. There's not a person in that photo I don't like. Maybe these people, because they weren't with us. I don't know them. I can't vouch for them. They're probably great, but I can't vouch for them. Anyway, we save that, and then it's adding that. You should probably add alt text for your images, but you get a sense of what it pulls over. I'm going to edit this again. And in the editing, you can come in here and change the order and flip things around. I'm going to delete that one. Not that I don't like Melanie, so don't take it that way. But I really do think this featured section makes a lot of sense to post your work, and you can post directly from your portfolio, which is great because you're going to be building one of those. Back here to your resume. I would like to see some sort of 2-column design, mainly because I like elevating. One, I like making use of all this dead space because resumes are consistently crowded. It's like you can't find enough space. So a 2-column design makes use of that. The other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to get something in here, like it says work experience. I would like to get a projects area in here so that you could talk about Fresh Market, because Fresh Market wasn't for a client necessarily, but it is a big project that you want to be able to talk about. Um, Education and skills and languages. I think this is pretty awesome. Anytime you have languages to offer, I think it makes you a far more attractive candidate. But I would flip this around. I would say skills, languages, education. And I know you went to Clemson, and you're still actually rocking the Clemson EDU email address, which threw me off for a second because when I saw it, I'm like, are you a teacher? Are you a student? Like, it makes me think that honestly, if you're applying for a job, it makes me think that you're still a student. Now, if you're applying for a job in South Carolina, I can see that carrying like huge weight because like Clemson's like a big deal there. If you're applying for a job and it's remote and say in I don't know, New York or San Francisco, like this looks like it's coming from a student as it stands right now. So I might consider, getting a Gmail just for applications, just so people do not think that, for whatever reason, you're a student. Although the G makes me wonder if this is like a graduate account. I can't claim to know. But I would like a 2-column design. I would like work experience to get featured. I would like to see an area added for projects. And right now that would be Fresh Market. And then this could be a column, a small column, in addition to this. And the way I'm looking at this is like if it's a column that comes down the side, and it's like your intros here. You could also have your intro up top. That's fine. But this information, it all could tuck in here or here, and it wouldn't hurt a thing. So, and I think that, you've got a lot more to add down here on skills now, because my goodness, have you covered a lot of material in the program. Anybody who's been watching these knows that Eve is now a skilled tactician of not only all the research methods, but also Figma and all the testing, Figma prototyping and testing with Usability Hub and Maze. And, I think you've got a lot more to offer than just what's said in here. So that said, we've talked about Eve and resume and then LinkedIn. These are easy to update, but I do think that they will take a round. So let's get on that, and then we'll sync back up probably tomorrow. I mean, it's Wednesday. This shouldn't take long. Okay, jumping ahead. And by the way, Eve, like that resume thing I was talking about, the one I'm talking about is just right there. Okay. Moving on. Katie's up next, and Katie has that's fine. I'll change my account in a minute. She's working in a couple different directions. She was working on components yesterday, and she's working on components again today, but a different project. She's kind of circling back, and we do a lot of that here. We do a lot of this multi-track, working on things at the same time. I'm not opposed to it, mainly because if you're willing to put in the time, I'm willing to ride along and give you the feedback. I'm never gonna poo-poo people putting time in. Okay, and Katie's just been crushing it as far. Katie on an effort level is an A+. All right, so let's jump in here, and yeah, so here's Katie, and she's now over here in, this is a new exercise, and she's in, Luigi or Kara or Eve, you've all been through this. This is an exercise with a ton of parts. So what do I mean by a ton of parts? Well, this is what I mean by a ton of parts. This is an adapted version of the Pajamas UI used by GitLab. Okay, and so if you want to look at the remix, it's right here. I call this Robo Pajamas. Pajamas is the UI, but Pajamas was built in Helvetica New, which is not a standard font on and it looks like I got a misspelling on Chromebooks. Oh, I got to go update that. I will update that later. It's not standard on Windows or Chromebooks. So because of that, I put it into Roboto, and Roboto is a Google font that's available for everybody. So if you wanted to use Robo Pajamas, or if you wanted to use, not Robo, but Roboto Pajamas, if you wanted to use Pajamas, previously you had to have a Mac, pretty much, because that was the only way you could get access to that, to the fonts needed. So I created this to make basically, level the playing field a bit. And I want to do more of that, to be honest with you. I want to go through and find time to standardize and open source other frameworks. Like Uber's got a really nice one, but the font that they use is it's behind like lock and key. So they've shared their UI kit, but unless you're going to go through and convert it, there's no way you can use it. So I kind of want to do that. Maybe when I tell you what, here's what I'll do. When I finish all the curriculum that I'm working on, I will go through and open source and standardize the Uber UI kit. So if you're watching along, hold me to that. It won't be in the next 2 weeks, but I'm going to circle back and do that because I just think it's, actually the Roboto Pajamas is the most popular of the releases that I put into the Figma community. It's got several hundred downloads at this point. So, and I realize it sounds several hundred. Isn't that low? Listen, for me, I'll take it. I'm not all that important. So here we go. So the outline of this is the interface will display the feature results for a search query for the word chicken. The client's goal is to display the information in a manner that encourages discovery via image display. While you do not need to use all the information provided at the same time, you should use all the information for the item that is being featured. A collection of content has been gathered at the link below, and if you click on this, it will open a link, and that link opens this. Come on. Okay, sorry. And I should turn that off. Anyway, this has a ton of content in it, and this is all the recipe content to. Whoops. Okay, so there's like 9 recipes in here, 10 recipes in. I think there's 9 actually, because this is one row by itself. And then there are a number of images available for some of these. I gotta wonder why this one only has 1 and these have 3. So I will I'll circle back on that. But regardless, this information was put together so that it would be easier for us to construct this amazing new prototype. And right now, looking at it, you're showing the results for chicken recipe, and you've got 9 on the screen. I'm not sure if 9 is necessary. What I do, it says 1 of 9 of 20, and then it's like it's got four pagination pages down here. It seems like it would have 2 based on the numbers that you provided here, or maybe 3, but definitely not 4. Just something to think about there. You've done a good job. You've selected the search nav. Like if we come over here to assets and we come down and we go, oh hey, where's the navigation? Here's the navigation. I'm gonna drag that over. That was weird. Yeah. So there's the navigation. You can see, she went and she found that. The shapes here, it seems like recipe got really big. I'm going to look for cards real quick. So why did the rest? Yeah, that got really large. UI regular. So regular. That's really weird that it would be up at 24. Seems like more that should be more like 16. Yeah. I think that got knocked. That got knocked somehow. There's no way that's supposed to be 24. But did you notice how oh, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Did you notice how easy it was to change this? So I'm going to go in here to the sliders again, and I'm going to hit this back to 24. That's where it was. And you see how it like just changes throughout? That's one of the coolest things. It's like one of the most addictive things about Figma and components and styles is once you have a style, if you're in here and you're like, hey, you know what, that doesn't feel right, you just click on the style, go over here to the editor, and then like you can say, hey, you know what, I want that to be bold. It'll make it bold. Or you can say, I want that to be 14. It'll make it 14. 14 is way too small though. 16. Yeah, so I need to go back in here and edit that. Not sure why it moved, but it definitely moved. So let's fix that. Actually, you know what? I just fixed it here, so we're gonna stay with that. That's totally not your fault though, because that's right here in the shape. Now, what's interesting is it's pretty clear to me that you have a good sense of ooh, interesting. Okay. I see something. You are struggling with how to get images into the shape. Well, first of all, I like the fact that you've got an on-off set here figured out, okay? The other thing that I want to do here though is, okay, so you got chicken tortilla soup. Okay, interesting. Let's, okay. All right. Let's do this real quick. Okay, let's have a little powwow. So I've got this image, and I've got this shape, okay? I want this image to be part of this shape. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say copy paste. I'm going to say copy properties. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to come over and say paste properties. Ta-da! It's in there, okay? Now, if I want to go in here and I want to say, hey, I want to crop that image, I can now move it around, okay? I can now blow it up, you know, whatever it is that I desire to do, we can now do it, yo. So, yeah, that's something that I've seen people struggle with before, and it's fine. I mean, this is part of getting used to using this. And then what I like to do is I like to say, okay, well, now that I've got that set up, I'm going to copy the properties. I'm going to come down here. Let's get rid of that. And then I'm going to paste properties. And there it is. And now when you go back and forth between these, it's going to work. Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out, though, is you don't necessarily, and this is, I gotta give props where props are due. This is where Eve kind of opened my eyes to modals. So in the past, I've used modals kind of as these overlays. And what I mean by that is, like, and I'll set that. Well, how do I want to do this? I'm just going to move this over real quick. Okay. I've used modals as like a. Well, why don't I just draw one? I'll just draw one and show you. All right. So frame. Let's just draw a little frame. Okay. Here's a little frame. It's the littlest frame ever. And I'm going to fill it with blood. All right. That's not really bloody enough. Like, blood's a little darker. Yeah, look at that. Okay. Blood's really blue, but when it hits oxygen, it turns red. You get the idea. So let's go here and let's look at the prototype real fast. We're going to come over and I'm going to drag it to this frame. All right. Now, when I go into prototype mode, that's going to look pretty weird. All right. So you'll see what I mean here in just a second. And I realize that we're probably going off. Like, Chris, you're roaming again. That's what I do. That's what I do. Non sequitur. All right. So hey, it's a big blank screen. It looks like a Kanye West album cover. So that's great, right? It's like, why would I do that? That this is like, it's weird. So let's come back over here. This link, again, we're in prototype mode. This link is, first of all, there's no interaction. It's just like I click on the page and it does something. So I'm gonna say on click, and I actually want to change this to be very specific. I'm gonna go from when I click on this one. Okay. So on click, I'm gonna go to this frame. Now, I'm gonna navigate to, and navigate to has some options. So I can open overlay, and I can swap with. Okay. So these are important to keep in mind. I'm going to open overlay on this one, and I'm going to say that I want it to be centered. Okay. And you can like adjust the positioning, and then I'm going to close it when clicking outside, and I'm going to add a background behind, and that background is going to be like 50% dark. Okay. The animation, I want it to move in, and I want to move in from the top. Okay. So now let's go back and look at this, and I'm going to click, and it comes in, it slides in, and now we have like an animation. This is how I've always used modals. But Eve showed me something that was pretty interesting, because the direction you're going in here isn't the wrong idea. It has its merits. However, well, instead of dragging down here one click, and basically I'll show you what we've got here. So now, and by the way, that transition should not move like that. It should just dissolve. Yeah, let's just dissolve. Let's make it easy. So navigate to search page. So now, when this happens, it's just going to dissolve in. Okay, nothing else changes. It's just dissolving in. The other thing that you want to do in a prototype is you always want to have this. You always want to make sure that there's a way to get back to the original. Okay, so now I want to get back. I click that. Come in, go out, come in, go out. That's great. But it's not the only way we can do this. Instead of going down here to this new page, we can just swap. Okay? And when we swap, instead of navigate to, we're just going to swap with. We're going to swap with this, and then it's going to say dissolve for preserve scroll position, which is important. I can't stress how important preserve scroll position is. On hover, I'm going to do this swap thing, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to navigate back to search page, and I'm going to dissolve, and I'm going to preserve scroll position. So let's just see how this is working now. Oh goodness, I busted it. I forgot to do something pretty certain. Let's go with open overlay. Yeah, I think that's the issue. Yeah, it is, but I think maybe that it's not quite lined up. So close when clicking outside, open overlay. Navigate back to. Okay, what have I done that's off here? Maybe that's the issue. I've done something wrong here. while hovering. Yeah, we definitely don't want swap with. Open overlay. That's the one we want. Oh, manual. So manual is going to basically say put it back where this is. Yeah, that's the trick. Okay, that's the trick. So when we're over here and we don't have manual selected, it was saying centered, and it was just opening centered on the screen. And when you look at it, yes, that is exactly in the center. And if we instead were dragging from over here, and we did the same thing, it would be a little easier to see. And that was really what was throwing me off. I want to open overlay. It's going to be centered, but now when this happens, it's going. Then we'll say while hovering, it's going to be like kind of over here. You see? So I'm actually activating it from here. What we actually want is we want this, and now we'll do while hovering, open overlay, instead of centered, manual. I'm getting smart. No, not really all that smart. But now you can do it. You can do this instead. And this is really helpful, particularly with buttons, like anywhere that you have a button. And this is kind of like a button. Now, the trick here is to be able to say, okay, and then what's the follow one? So the follow one is over here, and when this happens, on click. So if I come over here, I've hovered over this, and then I click, it should take me to this page. All right, let's see if we can get that to work. And it does. All right. Now, one thing I noticed in this is that you've got text here. This text right now, as it is just kind of hanging out, it's not actually part of the meals page. The meals page is down here, and that is why this is not showing up. Okay? If you looked at the prototype, it's like, hey, where's the stuff? All right? It's not showing up. I do like the fact that you're using the breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs for the win. Of the breadcrumbs. But I digress. I think this is coming along pretty well. I like some of what I'm seeing. I just want it to cover a few of the potential prototyping things that you'll want to look at. And the other thing is, keep in mind the idea here is that they're going to be able to do discovery via photos, and we're supposed to include all the photos here. All right. I know you're still figuring out this page, but there should be an interaction in your prototype for switching the photos out. Okay. Give that some thought, and then obviously we'll circle back. But otherwise, I think that you're on the right track. I like the fact that you're on a grid. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. Although I didn't see if we were on a grid over here. Looks like it's turned off. Aha. See, at least that thought is happening. And for those of you wondering, why is Chris going all goo-goo over grids? A, grids make everything better. Okay, and B, I've told Katie this before, and I think it's something that bears repeating for everybody here. Grid is the usage of a grid is table stakes in design. Like if you're not using a grid, you're really missing out. Okay, you're missing out on consistency. You're risking for not a whole lot of upside, looking like an amateur. Okay. Designers who do not use grids consistently, that's amateur hour. Okay, that's student work. When you start using a grid, you begin to look like a professional. And I got to be honest with you, it took me. I was a couple of years into my design career before I religiously started using grids. Okay, I don't want to be constrained and whatever. You know, really good design is always built with guardrails. Come on. Otherwise, you can never operate at speed. So, just a few things I want to point out there, Katie. And let's move along. So, Charlie's reworked his about page, and he's included his about page here. And we kind of walked through some of this the other day. He's actually gone through and done the work. He's done the work. So he's been working in CSS Grid. And the big thing that I want, oh, actually, I've got it over here. And as you can see, like, he's got breakpoints in here, and it's all lined up, and I love it. I do think that you need to bring down the size of some of these, like that X-Wing thing is not working out well for you when we get big. The other thing, Charlie, that I want to see is I really want to see an intro here that says, hey, I'm Charlie, like something to introduce you, okay? That's the piece that's missing right now. Like you jump right in and we don't know you yet, okay? So if you could do that, that would improve this immensely, all right? Now we will come back and we're gonna work on like the styling of this header and what happens to it when it gets small. But right now, the big thing that I want you to add now that you've kind of figured out the grid, and we do need to work on some sizing. That's a media query thing. The next thing I want to do is I want to get an intro in here. Okay, that's minor stuff, but it's major when we think about the flow of this page. All right, and now that you've got grid set up, we do need to work on some of the spacing up here. It's just off a little bit, but again, let's get that intro in first, and then we'll work on the spacing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. This edition of the Feedback Loop is wrapped up. I've got meetings with several of you coming up here in just a short bit. So without further ado, I'm Chris Courtney. This has been the Feedback Loop, and I'll chat with all of you tomorrow. Take care.